What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. It's time for us to talk about NXT TAKEOVER 30, where we'll be breaking down the card as far as we know it right now, talking about some speculation of what else they might add to the card, and anything else that we want to talk about. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Robert D. Felice.
Hey, hey!
And Callum Wiggins.
About to get triple X on you guys.
Yeah,
no Thunderdome, but we will get triple X with Vin Diesel. So
which means that we're pretty much already demonetized, right? It's just that's the way that YouTube is with sexually gratifying content. They're gonna be like,
I just said the words triple X.
We said triple X. We said sexually gratifying. I mean, I might as well just ruin it all right now by saying fuck, shit. Just kind of.
I don't know whether we can't class this as sexually gratifying because I'm looking at this card right now and my dick is flaccid as it can ever be right now.
I'm like thinking to myself, any way he finishes this sentence is going to be a little bit disturbing, because if he just goes, and I am so, like, it'd just be like, what?
I mean, I'm speaking on a metaphorical level. My metaphorical dick is flaccid right now.
my fandom dick, I guess you would call it. I don't know. I'm actually kind of into this. I like the card that we've seen so far. I think that there's potential to add some pretty decent matches to there. I think that this could end up being a lot of fun. Maybe I'll be the only one that's positive about it. I don't know.
Well, I'm here, so you're not going to be more positive than me. But
so we got a spectrum of flaccid, a semi, and full-on Fluffer did its job.
Yeah, it's easy to get me up, I guess is what we're saying here.
Right now, the manual person on YouTube's like, what the? Why did you say that this isn't whatever? This is,
This is perfect for new ones. We should make this a trailer for the Smark Moment channel.
Yeah, maybe. Are those still even a thing? Those little channel trailer things?
They can be. They're not an in thing anymore.
So many things on YouTube change all the time.
There you go.
Well, we've got 4 matches confirmed. One of the matches does not have all of the participants confirmed, and there's always pretty much 5. I mean, there's been maybe 1 or 2 takeover events where there's been 4 matches, but those have been the War Games things and such. So we're pretty much guaranteed to get at least 1 more match added to this card. And right now, when we're recording this, it is Tuesday afternoon. So obviously the NXT episode that's leading into this, the Go Home episode, has not aired yet. So we will get information on the missing people of the ladder match. And I'm assuming 1, maybe 2 matches added to the card. The last takeover event had 6. We had the 6-woman tag, I think, was added to the pre-show or so. And maybe they add 2 matches instead of just 1. So I'm going to start off there with the idea that let's just kind of talk about what they might add. A match that they haven't added yet, but I'm assuming is on the bubble at the very least, is Santos Escobar against Isaiah Swerve Scott for the Cruiserweight Championship. They have made it very clear Scott is the number 1 contender. He is firmly feuding with Escobar. He has been tagging up with Breezango against Legado del Fantasma. It's pretty much just a question of, do they do it on this takeover or do they do it on NXT?
They should do it on TakeOver. I think Swerve Scott is fantastic when he's not being, jobbed out on Raw Underground. And
yeah, that's not why they're using him like that lately. That's really bad.
He's going to be a huge star. And Santos Escobar has quickly become one of the bright spots in the Cruiserweight division. So if they do add this match, it should be really good.
Yeah, I have no doubt about the quality of the match itself. Both guys are really good, and I'm sure they'll put together a good Cruiserweight Championship match. I don't think that it'll happen on NXT TakeOver. I mean, there's a good chance they will do, because I think they're doing that 6-man tag, aren't they, on this week's NXT, where it's going to be Scott teaming with Breezango against the Legado del Fantasma. So I assume that could lead off.
Yeah, I think that is this week.
Yeah, so I assume that you could have Scott pin one of the other two teammates, either Mendoza or Wild, and then you have the reason to make this match at TakeOver. It feels a little bit soon, but because there hasn't really been a huge amount of interaction besides what happened last week. But yeah, it makes sense to a degree, and it's just somebody for Escobar to beat until they find somebody that can maybe take the mantle from him at some point, but it's too soon for him to drop the title.
What happened to Maverick?
Maverick had his feud, pretty much.
Did he?
Yeah, they had a lot of matches where it was like, maybe not a lot. Maybe it might have been like 3 matches or something like that. Now I'm thinking about it, but he had a couple different matches with Escobar and some of the people around that kind of range. As like,
I don't know. It seems a little scummy to me. It seems like, oh well, we got him to resign. We're good. Just kind of fuck off, Drake.
I think that they did that. They got that out of the way a little bit. I think that Scott went from being the guy that I thought would be the next champion to the guy that I think is kind of falling into that pit of like, let's get the number 1 guy out of the way and then we'll figure out where to go from there. Because now I'm starting to think that it's going to be Kushida who beats Escobar at some point. And, Scott would be a great choice for a champion, but I'm liking Escobar way too much right now to have him drop that title. And it's still a little bit weird that they're like, officially, I guess he's technically supposed to still be the interim champion. Let me double check that for sure. Because did they take what's his face off the page?
They took Devlin off the page last time I checked.
Let's double check here. The Superstars page is not quite loading for me. So, if they do the kind of thing where Devlin at any point has grounds to still be champion, then it's still a heel versus heel situation that's really weird. They would have to have some kind of a babyface beat Escobar. And
shit, no. They put him back.
So he still is listed on there?
It's still Jordan Devlin.
Let's see here. The page is now loaded. Yeah, the 2 of them. Santos Escobar / Jordan Devlin. So, I mean, it would be weird for an interim champion to lose it and then to have a whole thing that would just set up a Jordan Devlin thing. But they've done heel versus heel before, and depending on what the hell their plans are when it comes to NXT UK, maybe they do have some kind of thing where, like, somebody like an Isaiah Swerve Scott gets in the mix of that and they have a triple threat or something like that. Or maybe they just do it, or maybe they just say, out of the blue one random day, it's just Escobar. But I'm liking him way too much to have him drop the title right now. And I think if they do have this match, whether it's on NXT or it's on TakeOver, Scott's going to lose. But that's not to say that Scott's a bad performer or anything like that. It's just now's not the time to beat the champion when the champion's that good. Another match that I think it could go on this card very easily, or they could do it on the NXT, and they could do variations of it too, is we've got this Shotzi Blackheart and Rhea Ripley versus the Robert Stone brand thing going on. Mercedes Martinez and Aaliyah are feuding with Blackheart and Ripley. So they could do Ripley versus Martinez. They could do Ripley and Blackheart against Martinez and Aaliyah. They're not going to do, at this point, either of them against Aaliyah. That's not as big of a draw. Martinez is definitely the linchpin of that. So they can get away with it being one way or another. They could do the tag match on NXT and then try to do Ripley and Martinez separate. Or they could do what I think that they're going to do, is the tag match on this card. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that there's a possibility of some sort of combination of these women competing on the card. I think it would be a bit underwhelming. It would be like the same as the 6-woman tag from the previous one, not in terms of in-ring quality, but just because it's not really much of a feud at the moment. But I would personally prefer to just see Ripley against Martinez, because that feels like the bigger match out of the possible options.
Do a tag team match. You need to establish women's tag teams with Payback being 8 days away, and why not Rhea Ripley and Shotzi Blackheart? Give them an excuse to go between all 3 brands. That they'd be a great team to drop the titles to. And also, I don't want to waste Ripley versus Martinez in front of nobody. I'm kind of really low on the no crowd shows right now.
Well, I mean, eventually they're going to have a singles match. So depending on, like, I mean, they're not doing the NXT stuff in the Amway Center, right?
No, they're not doing it in the Thunderdome, Tony. Get it right.
How do they got the rights to that? I mean, that's got to be just like a copyright issue, right? I mean, Mad Max
Maybe,
Thunderdome, like,
maybe they paid. Maybe they paid for this one. Like, hey, we're gonna do this thing. Let us use it. We're sorry.
wonder why they didn't just call it something other than Thunderdome. Like, then try to trademark it themselves, you know? WWE, whatever, I don't know.
Because even they realized Superstar Dome sounds stupid.
Lightning Dome. Thunder Dome or something like that. I don't know, but that's a different discussion for another day. If they are not going to do that with that, then it's all going to be the same anyway. So, I mean, they might as well just sort of do whatever they feel is the better way to get people to watch this card. And of course, they've been trying to do some things with the TV shows where they're trying to add some decent matches to try to get people to tune in. Doesn't seem like it's really working all that much, but you know, I mean, depending on your breakdown of this, I can't imagine, despite the fact that I'm a fan of this group, I can't imagine Ripley versus Martinez or the tag team match or whatever the pairing you want to do is going to make somebody go, oh, well, you know, I got to tune into NXT instead of AEW tonight, that kind of thing. Big fan of them, but I just can't see that being like the big draw factor kind of thing, you know?
Well, that's the interesting dynamic of this show in particular, is because NXT is going to be, well, NXT Takeover. It's not NXT this time, but it's NXT Takeover is going head to head for a short period of time against AEW.
If the NBA game is over in time, the whole thing could end up going head to head with Takeover, depending on when this game ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you have to imagine that AEW has put some things together which make it seem like there's some compelling stuff on there. So there is a good chance that a lot of viewers will be lost on this one, and they need to put something hot out off the gate, really. I don't think that a Ripley versus Martinez or any sort of combination of them is really going to say, okay, I'm definitely going to stay tuned into this show, as opposed to, maybe I'll just see what AEW is doing at the moment. And then you might just lose people altogether because they know they can just watch this on replay immediately afterwards.
Right, yeah, it's just on the network. They already have the network. They can just watch this at midnight or whatever they want to. And I'd rather them do the tag team match, all things considered, and then have Ripley versus Martinez on just a regular episode of NXT. I think that maybe that might be a little bit better. And the tag match, to me, there's more of a chance that it gets lost in the shuffle, whatever match they do. And I'd rather the tag match get lost in the shuffle than just a singles match. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it's more people on the card, you know? Like, in theory, having 2-on-2 seems like a bigger deal. So that's, you know, the Robert Stone brands actually, like, they're going to get their comeuppance because Shotzi and Rip are going to, like, you know, kind of fuck them up. And check that out on TakeOver. You know, like, they could do some kind of a Raw segment tomorrow night on NXT and set that up or whatever pretty easily. They could also do something with the people that have lost their chance to be in the ladder match. Now, we don't know exactly who that's going to be. We know that, for instance, like Kushida and Oni Lorcan, they lost their matches, but there's a second chance thing going on. And, you know, maybe they kind of play off of that a little bit. We know that we're going to get Ridge Holland and Johnny Gargano in a match, and we're going to get Finn Balor and Velveteen Dream. So there's like Timothy Thatcher, and you know, maybe they kind of do some kind of mix of that. Before we get into the ladder match talk, do you guys think that they're going to do anything with those people? Because I'm leaning more towards whoever isn't in there just isn't on TakeOver.
I think Thatcher and Balor is a possibility.
I don't think they'll be on it. I mean, if any of those people are going to be on it, it's going to be Velveteen Dream versus Kushida to build off what happened on the previous episode of NXT.
See, but Thatcher keeps calling out Balor, and I think Balor and Thatcher can have a more compelling singles match at a TakeOver than Velveteen Dream and Kushida.
Potentially, yeah, I agree with that, but that kind of feeds into what I think is going to be happening with the North American Championship ladder match. But before we actually move on to what's on the card itself, I have to ask, Where is my NXT Tag Team Championship match?
Yeah,
That's a great question.
Imperium just isn't really factored in.
This is the second takeover in a row there hasn't been an NXT Tag Team Championship match.
They had a Breezango match on NXT, and I guess that they are kind of factoring that in as like, well, they've defended the titles.
Well, they had that match with Undisputed Era a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so
they haven't been defending it. It's just that the NXT tag team, as we discussed earlier in like the episode we did recently on the NXT tag teams, the tag team wrestling was kind of one of the linchpins of great takeovers. It was the thing that you would put out first and would get the crowd really excited. And like Bartel and Eichner are no slouches. They all put on great matches with pretty much anybody. And so it really pains me that the tag titles has just been neglected in the way that it has.
And I'd love to see some kind of a decent enough match. I mean, we didn't get Imperium against the Brit and Bruisers, right?
I don't think we did.
No, not that I'm aware of as of yet.
I mean, that wouldn't be the type of thing that somebody would be like on the fence about TakeOver, and that would probably get them to tune in more than likely. But it'd be a hell of a match, that's for sure. So I'd love to see that at some point down the line, whether it's on NXT or it's on TakeOver. But we also have that October 4th thing, which might happen. We still haven't gotten any kind of confirmation about that yet, but there's a chance that we get another TakeOver as quote unquote as quickly as October 4th. And who knows what's happening with the War Games thing. Maybe they bumped up War Games. Maybe they keep War Games around Survivor Series. Maybe we have 2 right in a row like that. Maybe it's just all bullshit and the October 4th thing is not true. But if we don't get an Imperium or whoever the tag team champions are at that point match on the next TakeOver, it's going to almost seem like they purposely don't want to put the TakeOver matches and the tag team matches together.
Well, they could be doing what WWE has been doing with the Intercontinental Championship, where they're just not putting it on pay-per-view for whatever reason. But also, it could just be they had other plans for the tag teams, and now they don't have as many good tag teams as they wanted. Because again, where are Indusher again? Where Pete Dunne, Matt Riddle aren't a thing anymore.
They definitely had a really different picture of this tag division at the beginning of the year. They were setting up Razorweights versus Grizzled Young Veterans, and that, of course, just went to shit.
That would have been a great match.
It will be at some point. I have to go back to normal at some point, right? It can't just be like 10 years from now talking about like, well, remember how people used to do things? Like,
you never know.
Then again, there's been plenty of movies about that. Well, as far as potential matches that they might add to the card, those 4 scenarios are the only things I can really think of. Can you guys think of anything else that they might put out there? Maybe like, Candice versus Tegan or like some kind of random thing like that.
What happened to Candice versus Mia? Did they ever have...
Yeah, they had a couple matches.
Okay, good. Because I feel like a lot of these NXT things are just moving so quickly, and they're not striking as much of a chord as they used to. Am I wrong? I know I've been harping on this with a lot of the TakeOver talks recently, but does it not feel like it's significantly dropped off?
I think it's because it's the 2-hour thing.
Yeah, it's a mixture of the 2-hour thing. Things don't feel as important. It's also due to the fact they're live, and they used to be able to structure shows from TakeOver to TakeOver, film 4 or 5 weeks in advance in a row, so they could really make sure all their storylines are succinct and followed through that entire period. And now they're just going week to week. They're getting flustered. They're forgetting things. They're rushing different storylines. Things are happening that are out of their control, and it's negatively affecting the product.
It's almost like the way to fix it would be to just plan ahead.
Yeah,
but it's
like I'm sure they try, but you can't plan for all the shit that keeps happening to them.
I mean, we established in our Facebook group chat of just how, I hate to say, like, that the writers or anybody in WWE creative, like, that they suck at their job or anything like that, because I know that, like, we've heard plenty of horror stories about scripts being thrown out at the last second, and you need to do things on the fly, and you can't really have your voice as a writer because you're really just writing for one person and all this other kind of stuff. I'm sure that stuff gets in the way, but like things as simple as like I mean, we established on Raw that the Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke and Shayna Baszler trio is still a thing that they've just been missing for months. And the idea that Peyton Royce and Billy Kay are just like, what, who are these people or whatever. And then I forget if it was Byron or if it was like Tom or somebody, but on commentary was just sort of like, what are they doing together? And it's like, I don't know, maybe being fucking friends, like maybe establishing the same thing that you've established for years at this point, even beyond WWE. Like, it's not hard to do something a little bit different. I forget exactly what the example was that I had said, but it was something like you can take that moment and just show how much better of a writer you are by using logic and saying, instead of who are they, saying, what are they doing here? And you get the same, ooh, that's something interesting, without being an idiot. Like,
you know what? I've gone back recently and I've been watching a lot of like early 90s WWF, and Vince doesn't do that on commentary. He doesn't,
act like a moron.
Yeah, like he's pretty competent. He's like, oh, well, this happened because XYZ. So why aren't other commentators doing that? Does he somehow think in the last 20 years that everybody in the world has just lost their common sense, or what? I don't get it.
I mean, he used to act like a moron when it came to a few things. Like, I mean, the most well-known example that I always mention is when it's like in the Royal Rumble and he'll be like, that's it, he's out of there, he's caught, and the person's like not even hanging over the edge of the rope or anything, and then it's just like, okay, you're like really getting ahead.
Well, there's a difference between feigning excitement, and just going, oh my god, look, it's Shayna Baszler hanging out with her two friends.
Yeah.
That we like, what?
But like, just planning a little bit ahead would probably make a lot of these shows a lot better. And I do feel like there's a little bit of a rush job happening in NXT lately, where ever since they started with this whole thing where they're going up against AEW, there's a little bit of like a, I don't know exactly the way to phrase it, coming out of my head, especially since I'm tired, but like almost, let's toss it out there and hopefully that'll get people interested and then we'll figure it out, kind of a thing. Like, we're going to talk about this later. I'm not going to skip to it right now, but it's way too early to be doing Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross to me. And it seems like it seems like that's just kind of, we don't know what else to do, so let's just do it. And then maybe by the time that's over with, we'll have a different plan, that kind of a thing. So it's like, yeah, I kind of feel that about NXT lately, where there's less cohesion than there used to be, and that sucks.
And it came at a shitty time because they just got to 2 hours, and like, admittedly, that took something away from the presentation. But between the hour increase and you lose the environment with the fans, and it just seems like your roster's in shambles, because not as much as AEW, but they also depended on some foreign talent. They were kind of merging the NXT UK stuff with like having Walter on the show and having Pete Dunne there, and you have so many missing pieces now.
Yeah, so we don't know what extra matches are going to be added to the card, but by all means, of course, we're going to have some more information later on this week, and then we'll touch back on those kind of things, those missing elements on the hot tags later on. Obviously, that's something for the future, so stay tuned for that, which reminds me to plug something that I forgot to plug. If you are not subscribed to us, then subscribe to the YouTube channel here and ring that little notification bell, so that way when we do post things like that you will get some kind of a notification in your emails about the video going up in the hot tags and stuff. And you should be hitting the like button on this video. You should be dropping your comments below and telling us your thoughts on that. So tell us what you think that they might add to the card, as well as your predictions for the rest of the matches that we're going to talk about here. Obviously, if you're listening to us on some kind of a platform that does not have the YouTube stuff, like, anything other than YouTube, like Spotify and Stitcher and iTunes and all that stuff, then you can't do that, but hop on over to YouTube and do that anyway. So We do know
We'd be
4
lost without
matches.
you, Tony.
Without you? It would just
We'd
be
be
Tube.
lost without you. Oh God, go ahead, go ahead.
So, one of those matches that I think is indicative of the whole let's just do something for the sake of doing it is Io Shirai versus Dakota Kai for the NXT Women's Championship. And that's not to say that that's a bad feud. That's not to say that it's a bad match, any of that kind of stuff like that. I do think the feud's a little bit lacking because it really doesn't exist for the most part. But the women's title situation has been a mess for a while because they decided, you know what the best thing to do for Rhea Ripley would be? Have her lose to Charlotte Flair. That'll really put her over. And then Ripley will kind of do nothing for a while, and we'll figure that out. And then with Flair, it became, well, now we got Flair, and she's not bumping the ratings because we just refuse to admit that that's probably not going to be an issue, and we figured we'd try it anyway. So let's just have Io Shirai win. And then it became Io Shirai's a babyface or a heel, depending on the day. And you kind of set things up randomly with this, and now it seems like she's a little bit more firmly in the babyface territory. So despite the fact that she's already had a match with Tegan Knox, now she's on to Dakota Kai. And this is the type of thing that I feel is like they're going around this circle of what would have been this very logical progression that they could have gone with, where it should have been Dakota Kai versus Rhea Ripley when Ripley was champion at some point. And
Yeah.
how the hell did we not get Dakota Kai with Raquel Gonzalez on the ringside, accompanying her to ringside and being on the outside interference kind of spectrum against Rhea Ripley? I'm like, we're on the darkest timeline. Like, that kind of thing just doesn't make any sense. But at least we're getting this,
Well, this was Dakota Kai turned heel at TakeOver War Games. That's November. That's back when Rhea Ripley's gonna beat Shayna Baszler, and it's gonna be this great crowning moment for NXT. We did not count on Charlotte Flair wins the Rumble, and then goes back to NXT, which then means there's no NXT TakeOver Women's Championship match where this match would have fit Dakota Kai versus Rhea Ripley, and then everything that Tony already mentioned where shit just gets muddled. So now we have Io versus Dakota, which is the logical match because, Dakota has worked her ass off and deserves this match. But also, I don't feel for a second that Dakota Kai has a chance. So it's kind of like, okay, let's get this over with. Hopefully it's good. But Shirai's got to win this.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. There's no question about it in my mind, except for if they're still just throwing shit at the wall and they're just kind of like, I don't know, fucking Dakota Kai now, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I echo similar sentiments. It should be a good match. These two work well, and so I think they'll be able to put on a decent match together. I'm a big fan of Io Shirai, obviously, and Dakota Kai has been doing some better stuff recently, and I don't have an issue with the quality of the match. It's just the result is very predictable, and it doesn't feel very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting this to be a solid match at the very least, if not potentially one of the better matches of the night. They're both more than capable of putting on a hell of a match. And, that's not like a negative at all. I mean, just saying Io Shirai versus Dakota Kai for the women's title, it's like, all right, cool. Just, man, it's a shame that there's no feud going on. There's no actual, direction that I can feel that they're going in. And,
and realistically, at the moment, it just feels like everybody's treading water until you have the one-on-one Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley match.
Yeah, and even then,
next
I'm
takeover.
Really confused about how they're going to go in that direction, unless their plan is to turn Rhea Ripley heel.
I think they'll just do babyface, and then just have one of them win, and then the other one moves on to the main roster, probably.
Honestly, when Rhea Ripley had that moment where she's like, nope, Dakota, you got to get through me first, I thought they were just going to retcon everything and go, okay, back to normal. Let's put the belt on Rhea Ripley and, get this thing where it should be. I have very little faith in the direction of NXT's women's division right now, and that's a shame because it is still kind of stacked, but I don't know if they know where they're going.
I also kind of can't imagine that there's a whole lot of options many months down the line for a lot of these things because, I mean, we're all going Io Shirai wins, right?
Yeah.
So you figure Io Shirai either in October or later in October, if maybe they take over the 25th spot or so, or in November or so, you've got a couple of months to still have something that she needs to do. She hasn't been one of those mostly featured people on this roster. Like, she kind of seems to be only showing up like every couple of weeks or so. But you got to move on to somebody at some point. And Candice LeRae strikes me as probably the next in line to get a title shot. Maybe they do the whole Martinez thing. Like, maybe she rises the ranks, and she could be a good person to take the title off of her, for that matter. But I can't picture, for instance, if they can plan things out ahead, and if pay-per-views come back in a certain way, and if plans are, better in the next year or whatever.
They won't be.
Probably not. But the big build to something, like a lot of times when somebody becomes a champion, you can kind of go, all right, well, probably the big match is going to be this person versus that person. Probably that match will happen at this point. We knew that like Ripley versus Shayna was going to be like a big match, and we knew that Ember Moon versus Asuka was like the highest thing that Ember Moon could have done, and Asuka Bailey, and different things like that. I'm like, if we don't do like an Io Shirai versus Rhea Ripley thing, is there really like a standout that Io Shirai could just be like, until she fights this person, she'll be holding the championship, and then once she fights that one, she's done.
My mind says Martinez.
That's who I go to.
Oh, I think the right choice for the next champion is Candice LeRae.
Yeah, I'm so disappointed with Candice LeRae in NXT. I don't know how they fumbled that one. I was very excited to see her turn heel, but she turned heel again in a weird landscape where it was like, well, we still need Dakota to be the top heel because we didn't give her thing. So you again have to sit on the back burner. I would love to see Candice get it, but I'm also at the point where, hey, maybe we just move Candice and Johnny over and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to see what happens with a lot of different things.
God, we've said that phrase a lot. Well, we'll just see what happens.
I just fundamentally want Candice LeRae to be the next challenger, just because, like I've said previously, that Io Shirai Candice LeRae match from last year was the best women's match they've had in years and years.
I do think that she's going to be the next challenger. I don't think she'll be the next champion, though.
Oh, no, I don't really care. I just want to see that match.
So we're all going to Shirai here. We don't know the full field yet of the NXT North American Championship ladder match. The belt was vacated because Keith Lee was double champion, and they decided, well, we can't figure out a way to book you as a double champion, so let's just have you give up the title. Certain people you can. Certain people you can, it seems.
Do you think that they had a long-term plan when they did In Your House to have Keith Lee beat Adam Cole at a NXT Great American Bash that was just on TV?
No, not at all.
No, they hot-shotted it because they wanted to beat AEW in the ratings.
Uh-huh. I think that their plan was to have this happen at TakeOver 30.
Isn't it ironic that they still would have had to go up against AEW if they just saved it for TakeOver 30?
Well, no, just based on the entire thing, they had no plan for it at all. I don't think they ever intended on it until they thought that, okay, we do this at Great American Bash, let's try and make it special by having this match on it. Because realistically, the whole booking of it is ridiculous, because Keith Lee wins both titles and then just decides to surrender one of them a couple of weeks later. So what was the point in Adam Cole even fighting for it then? If he was going to just, probably drop it a couple of weeks afterwards. Why would he risk putting his title on the line against Keith Lee when he's going to drop the title? When the title that he's going to win, he's probably not going to hold for much longer before, oh yeah, I realised I'm actually already NXT champion, so I probably should have this belt as well. So
It's
And
that
it's
old Hogan versus Warrior. It's you can't have both titles. Well, then why are we making it for both titles?
and
Because
then there's certain people that you can have both titles. I mean, you've got the Golden Role Models right now. They're tag champs and Raw and SmackDown Women's Champions. You've got Becky Lynch with Becky two belts for a month. They keep they really like this idea of double champions. It's like a thing in wrestling right now. It's so odd that people just get into these weird habits where it's just sort of I don't know if Becky's the one that really started it or if maybe somebody else did on the indies and that kind of caught on and WWE's kind of they carried the trend. But that's a thing where people are doing these this person's going to win this championship and that's weird and this person's going to win two championships and why not? And
well, the person that set the trend was New Japan with Naito winning both belts in the first show of the year, essentially.
Yep.
So it's been since then. Double champions has been a big deal.
That was before Becky won?
Well,
yeah,
no, I
that was
guess
January 4th. Well, that's January 4th.
No, that Becky won last year.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was because it's been quite a while since that happened. So,
so Becky probably was the one that started it then. Well, I mean, she didn't start it. I mean, the Kurt Angle won every title in TNA, and plenty of things like that. But
yeah, but there've been instances where it's happened before. It's just the trend that's just come back around,
right,
for a little while. And I don't really. Again, it's fine if you have a plan for it, but they clearly didn't have any sort of plan for it, rather than just say, "Hey, look, we got a really good quarter here because it was Keith Lee versus Adam Cole for the title, and Keith Lee's champion, and that's all good." But yeah, now we have the issue of the fact that this guy's also North American champion, and we don't want him to have both titles because he's got to drop one of them at some point. And yeah,
and then they do the pretty obvious thing where it's no, all of our titles mean a lot of things, everybody. There's no such thing as a mid-card championship. By the way, fuck this North American title, right? That's a mid-card title. Yeah.
Yep.
I hate when they do that kind of stuff. They could, again, it's not that hard, I would think, to think of alternative options for the way that a lot of things happen. Maybe this isn't the best idea in the world, but it's at least an idea. Why not have somebody challenge him for the North American Championship, and whoever he feuds with next for the NXT title screws him out of it? There you go. He'll lose by count out and have some kind of a stipulation where the count out is you can lose the championship by that. You can book ways around it where you can have him drop a title without him saying, I don't want to be a double champion anymore and screw this. The philosophy of people need to get their opportunities and I'm going to give this up because I'm a fighting champion or whatever. It's well, then fight for both titles. You're a double champion. You know what you were getting into,
Yeah.
So it's poorly written off, but at least it leads to something kind of fun, When you get a title that's vacated for something other than an injury or whatever, there's not that feeling of ah, man, that goes along with that, because it sucks when it's somebody, Finn Balor wins the Universal Championship and he has to drop it the next night, and you're well, we don't have a Universal Champion because he'll be gone for a couple of months or so. That feeling sucks. When you just have a blank champion and vacant gets another notch to his belt and you need to crown a new one, then it becomes a little bit more fun, It's interesting when you don't have a champion and you need to fill the void.
Yeah, it's just what's already happened with this ladder match that's going to take place is it's already been messed up completely.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be a 6-way ladder match to mirror the first match to crown an NXT North American champion. And now they can't do that because one of them had to go and get injured, and instead of pivoting to say, okay, well, he's got to be replaced, we figure out different ways to get 6 people in there. Now we'll just do it 5 instead. Just basically not defeating the whole objective, but the idea was the reason why this was going to be a ladder match, a 6-way ladder match, is because that was the match that crowned a champion when there was no champion beforehand. That makes sense in some sort of logic. You want to go for it. But now it's just a 5-way ladder match, and there's no real reason for it. And there was no real reason why every single match had to be a triple threat qualifier until this week, where there's going to be 2 singles matches between the people that didn't win the qualifiers. They've made this so unbelievably convoluted for no reason whatsoever.
Well, I will give them a little bit. Idea. I'll give them a little bit of leeway when it comes to the idea that one of the missing people that screwed this all up got injured.
Yeah, that's out of their control, and I don't blame them for that side of things. But I do blame them for why does every match have to be a triple threat? I guess maybe in their logic, the idea that Keith Lee last defended his title in a triple threat match, so they think there's some sort of continuity. But who the fuck remembers that, besides me, that Keith Lee last defended it in a triple threat match? Or who cares that he last defended it in a triple threat match?
I don't think that was why.
I think it was supposed to even itself out into like a last chance thing.
Yeah,
maybe. But then there's the other ideas of, okay, so we have all these triple threat matches to try and get as many people the opportunity as possible. And now we've gone into a situation where four of the people that have already had that opportunity get another opportunity at it, rather than having other people on the roster compete for the spot. It just, like, all of this is just so completely flying by the seat of our pants. We have no idea what we're doing right now.
Yep.
Just throw these random people. Oh, we eliminated Johnny Gargano and Finn Balor from contention. Oh, well, we can't do that because it's like we're in a bit of a bad situation at the moment. We need them on the card, so fuck it, just give them another chance and have them win that one instead. It's just...
Well, before Loomis got injured, they did say it was supposed to be a 5-way ladder match, not a 6-way.
Yeah, but it was definitely a 6-way when it started, though, because I remember seeing the graphic.
If they had a whole 5-person plan from the start, then having the way that they did the qualifying matches originally, Bronson Reed beat Johnny Gargano and Roderick Strong. Dexter Loomis beat Finn Balor and Timothy Thatcher. Damian Priest beat Oney Lorcan and Ridge Holland. And then Cameron Grimes beat Kushida and Velveteen Dream. I'm assuming their plan was Reed, Loomis, Priest, and Grimes get in there. Maybe they switched Grimes, maybe, whatever it is after the Loomis injury. But essentially, you have 4 qualifying matches. Those 4 are in there, and then you take the 2 people that lost both, not both, all 4 of those, and you put them in an 8-person battle royal or something like that. I'm kind of assuming that that's the second chance option they would have gone with. Now that they had the whole, we need to figure out somebody to replace Loomis, so now we got to set up 2 singles matches, and it's going to be Gargano and Holland because they're the ones that didn't take the pin or the submission, or that's convoluted as all hell, and it's basically to the point where it's just like just pick 5 fucking people and just throw them in there essentially. But those people that we have right now are Bronson Reed, Cameron Grimes, and Damian Priest. Dexter Loomis is out only because he's injured. That sucks for him, especially because they seem like they were really starting to try to go somewhere with him there. And we know we're going to get either Holland or Gargano, and either Balor or Dream. The ones who had lost their matches, Timothy Thatcher, Roderick Strong, Oney Lorcan, and Kushida, they don't get another opportunity unless they decide randomly today or tomorrow that it's going to be just like, you know what, they also get an opportunity, and it's whatever. They could just do that for the sake of it, but I guess, prediction-wise, let's talk about the 2 missing elements. Do we think we're going to get Holland or Gargano?
Holland.
I think so, too.
You go ahead. I'll just say, I think you have to do Holland.
Yeah, I don't like TakeOver without Johnny.
No,
if you got him, use him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, by any rights, it should be Johnny Gargano, but it's the case of you've just debuted this guy. He's already not won his debut match. Now you're giving him a 1-on-1, and if he loses again, he's probably pretty much dead on arrival already.
Plus, we don't have Tommaso Ciampa on this card. And as much as that,
just put Johnny and Ciampa together in a match.
No, I'm saying it's already going to feel a little bit weird if we get TakeOver 30 and there's no Tommaso Ciampa. But if we also get no Johnny Gargano, then it might not feel as weird that we don't get Johnny Gargano because we also don't have Ciampa. It won't seem like, wow, they're really just kind of screwing Gargano and not putting him in there. Well, they didn't do anything for Ciampa either. They're the 2 figurehead things. We are getting Adam Cole, we are getting a lot of these other kind of names and stuff, and maybe they're just thinking, we don't have anything for Gargano. Let's just not do that. And, the last TakeOver that had the North American ladder match, it was people that were kind of not at the very, very top. They had Lars Sullivan in there, they had Ricochet in there, EC3. So their philosophy could be pretty much, let's put some new people in there and then some trustworthy type of people too. I think Ridge Holland. Balor and Dream is an odd circumstance because they don't seem to have any idea if they want Balor to be a heel or a face.
He got fucked. He's got, outside of his initial NXT run, he has gotten so fucked all the time, Finn Balor.
And Velveteen Dream is now a heel. He attacked Kushida afterward. It's pretty much hard not to have him be a heel right now with all the stuff going on about the allegations and stuff like that, like a lot of people are really not into the idea of Velveteen Dream even being on their screen. Since we last talked about this, Triple H actually said something. He said what essentially boiled down to, we looked into it. We didn't think that there was anything there. So now that he's back from his car accident that he had, it's business as usual. So I don't think that we need to approach this as
we'll be
how
talking
is
about this in the hot
WWE.
tags because he's got a media call tomorrow, he being Hunter, and I'm sure
They'll probably address that at some point.
Media's gonna push him, so let's
It's
see.
it's the type of thing though that the fact that he said that and the fact that Velveteen Dream's back and had a heel turn and is potentially going to be in this match, I think we need to address Dream going forward, unless things change, as just business as usual. Let's treat it as if he never would have had those allegations, and that might mean that maybe he is in this match. Maybe he doesn't lose to Balor, you know? I know a lot of people would probably look at this as like, well, they can't put Velveteen Dream in there because of all the like, if they think that it's water under the bridge, then, you know.
I think he 100% beats Balor. I think he's in this match. I already said I think they add Thatcher and Balor to the card, and I think Velveteen Dream will be in this ladder match.
I don't.
No, I don't even.
I think Balor and Thatcher, if they do something in the future, they can do that over the course of post TakeOver 30 and kind of play into that a little bit more. But they could very easily have Kushida screw Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, which is what I think will happen. And Balor will win and go into the ladder match. Plus,
there's sort of like, I would assume hesitation. If he got into a car accident and he had some kind of a bad back problem, do you want to have him bumping on a ladder thing?
When have they ever cared?
And we've gotten plenty of instances where like Ciampa wrestled injured and stuff like that, but maybe I've been saying stuff like that a lot in this episode. I just got that. Maybe they have the foresight to go, that guy's got a bad back. He probably shouldn't be jumping off of a ladder and injuring
Daniel
himself.
Bryan went from, I can't take a bump, to
you can't push the guy.
For 60 minutes in a battle royal. They don't care.
I'm still leaning towards Balor getting in there, and I kind of feel like maybe having him in there has him play the role of like the veteran that sort of directs traffic, especially when there's like a Ridge Holland in there where he hasn't been around there long enough.
From a match standpoint, I hated the women's no fans ladder match. I thought it was really awkward and just kind of cringy to see a match like that without any audience participation to keep that like high energy vibe. So I'm not totally sold on this match just yet, but I'm gonna go with my personal favorite, Bronson Reed, to actually win the NXT North American Championship here, because Cameron Grimes, he's good for ladders. He's a hardy kid, so he's, good when it comes to that kind of style. He's been in Ultimate X matches and stuff. Ridge Holland, I'm sure he's fine. If Johnny's in there, he'll be great. But I just think Bronson Reed might be your safest pick right now from a PR standpoint and from a future building standpoint.
Where you go, Callum?
My choice. Finn Balor.
Yep, me too. Of course, obviously, if he's in the match, if Velveteen Dream beats him, then it's.
You know what? I hope that Velveteen Dream wins, just so.
If Velveteen Dream is in the match instead of Finn Balor, my choice would be Damian Priest.
Same here.
Oh.
But so I just think
forgot
that
he was in the match. Oops.
You've had your pick. But no, I think that you're not going to back your boy. God, you should have picked Damian Priest 10th in that draft then.
No, I'm absolutely still going Bronson Reed. I'm just saying I forgot Damian Priest was going to be in this match.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about Damian Priest. But I just think that Balor, we've already spoken about how the title feels a little bit worse because Keith Lee essentially had to give it up. So you rehab it on the strongest guy in the match, the most over-established guy in the match, Finn Balor. You have him carry it for a good length of time. They've already talked about the fact that it's a title that he hasn't held in NXT, so he can add a bit of prestige to it. He can defend it against the likes of Timothy Thatcher, which is where I can see that feud happening beyond that point. And there's tons of other opportunities for him to do it. And then I think it would feel like a bigger deal if somebody beats Balor, like a Bronson Reed or a Damian Priest or Cameron Grimes, beats him one-on-one for the title rather than win it in a fluke ladder match.
I think so too. And I think that the idea of having Balor as champion, depending on who walks out with the NXT championship, I mean, Balor is a name. He's a trustworthy enough talent that you know that he's not just going to completely flake and become a nobody. You put the North American title on him and he feuds with any of the other people that are in this or any of the other ones that are around that kind of spectrum, and he becomes some kind of an act that you really want to revolve around. I think that Balor versus Thatcher on its own, sure. Like, yeah, I'm interested. I'm sure a lot of other people would too. Balor versus Thatcher for the North American Championship. Suddenly it becomes a much bigger deal. And Priest and, Reed and all those other people, like the fact that they're in this match is a bonus for them. It's a boost. Somebody like a Rich Holland, if he gets in this, he doesn't take a pin. He can lose, and that's okay. EC3 and Lars Sullivan and those other people that lost that match, they didn't have any kind of real negatives that came out of not becoming the first ever North American champion. So I'm definitely leaning towards Holland gets in here, Balor gets in here because Kushida screws Velveteen Dream, and Balor ends up winning it. And I think that from the very start, their plan was Finn Balor winning this title.
Because he did call out Keith Lee. That I do remember. He said, when you're done playing house with Gargano, I want that title.
Yeah. So, some roundabout way, I think that they're going to get to the fact that Balor wins this. Of course, we'll figure out tomorrow night if he's even in the match. So, but if it comes to him not being in there, then maybe the prediction will change. And, of course, I mentioned before, we'll address that on Hot Tags because that'll be our opportunity to kind of round up everything that could have changed up until the last minute. It might be like the way that they do with like the bump and stuff, where they're just sort of like, hey, the pay-per-view is about to start in like 6 minutes. By the way, this match has changed and whatever, that kind of thing. It's annoying as all hell. It's not annoying as all hell though, is when you donate to the Patreon. Even $1 is greatly appreciated and goes a long way, especially because I'm really thinking about trying to upgrade from I use Blogger on this website.
You're going to go to WordPress?
I want so badly to go to WordPress, but it costs so much money. There's about maybe a 100 times cost upgrade, and I'm not even joking, versus what I pay now for the websites. And for me to be able to afford that, I need to somehow be able to afford that. So if you want more stability and you want some different features and a lot of, a better website, something that works on mobile, because I can't figure that out on this template and stuff, consider donating to the Patreon if you've got some spare change, because that stuff can make a big, big difference. I think it might even be part of the tiers on the goals. It's not tiers, because the tiers are the different things you can donate to, but the goals, I think there might be some kind of a setup about like, hey, I'd really like to be able to like actually, fix a lot of things that are broken because I'm not a web developer and I don't know how to do these things. But $1 is great. $5 is like an ad block forgiveness type of thing. $10 and up gives you access to the Patreon exclusive episodes, where we've had some episodes recently that are completely random like we normally do, but we've also had some that are special editions of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast that these guys do. We've got the Pick Your Poison tier, where you can request a special feature, a gimmick, or an article, or a podcast, or anything around that whole side of things. which we most recently did one of those as far as Guest Five's Patreon and donation was. That's why we have that top rope list for the NXT tag teams. So thank you again to Guest Five for that. And if you are not a big fan of the Patreon system, but you do have the spare change and you do still want to help out on the monetary side of things, another way to do that is through the merchandise shops on TeePublic and Redbubble. There's Smark Out Moment, and there's A Mango Tees, and there's Fanboys Anonymous. So check out those catalogs, check out the designs and the different products that you can apply those designs to. And if you don't know what Fanboys Anonymous is, that's the other website that I've got that I would love to turn into a WordPress thing. And I really can't afford that, especially. But the more that Fanboys Anonymous gets support, and the more that people donate to that Patreon, and the more that people click on that website and subscribe to that YouTube channel and follow all that other kind of stuff, which is kind of completely dead most recently because I normally do movie reviews on that YouTube channel, and movies don't pretty much exist anymore. So I would love to do more group meeting podcasts, and I've been setting up some ideas about the Mount Rushmore to do the thing like that. Lots of other kind of things on the back burner that I just can't get around to. So if you want the geek culture stuff like movie reviews and TV show talk and comic book discussions and some things about video games and whatever, fanboysanonymous.com is where you're going to find that. Look at that. Almost all my plugs are completely out of the way here. 2 more matches to talk about. We've got the special feature celebrity kind of highlight thing. Pat McAfee is stepping in the ring against Adam Cole because of the stuff that went down on the Pat McAfee show, which a lot of people at the time were like, is this a shoot? It's like, oh, you guys are so innocent. Immediately I'm like, all right, wow, we're getting Pat McAfee versus Adam Cole, or maybe Pat McAfee gets a team of people against the Undisputed Era or something like that. This could be a total disaster, but you know what? I'm really into it.
Well said. I am too.
Yeah. I can't say I'm too thrilled about Adam Cole being wasted in a celebrity match.
Well, neither. So I've said this exact line on far too many shows, and if you've heard me on any show, you've heard me say this already. But if Adam Cole wasn't going to carry the championship into the show, he's going to carry the celebrity through the show. And it's just a good way to say, hey, look, Adam Cole has once again proven he can do anything. Move him to the main roster, please.
Well, I'll ask 2 questions. First of all, is Pat McAfee a celebrity?
No, I am grossly misusing that word, but in this case, I guess he has to be.
Oh, he's got to be a celebrity. I mean, he's a famous sports athlete that's on a higher spectrum than what pro wrestling is, and he's got a talk show type thing. I mean,
he was a punter for a football team.
Which in football, apparently, the punter is like, yeah, you're not a real athlete.
And I imagine a lot of wrestling fans, a lot of NXT fans in particular, only know him as the guy who was appearing on panel shows in the NXT kickoff shows. So essentially, for them, he's just a pundit or a pretty much akin to a commentator. So he's not. So maybe people do know him for that, but he's never really been portrayed as anything beyond just an NXT fan on NXT TV prior to this. And secondly, what's really the benefit of this? Like, what does this accomplish? The fact that like Adam Cole was NXT's longest reigning champion, and now he's essentially been. It's not even. I can't say it's relegated because it's supposedly a celebrity match, but now he's going to have to put this guy over in the ring. Not put him over in terms of winning or losing, and by that, but he's going to have to sell for this guy.
Well, I think that they're trusting him to get a good thing out of this because of how good of a performer he is, and it's a shame that he isn't going to be, wrestling some kind of, amazing top tier WWE talent. But
it's not even that. It's not even how. It doesn't even matter how good the match is. He could have a great match with this guy. It's the fact that he's having to sell for a guy who's not a wrestler when he is the longest reigning NXT champion of all time. What the fuck does that say about your brand if your champion doesn't beat this guy in 2 minutes?
I think in their philosophy, it says that Pat McAfee's a positive as opposed to that Adam Cole's a negative. I think
Well, no,
that's how they see it.
It says that Pat McAfee can hang with the greatest wrestler who, at least in a kayfabe sense, has ever been in your promotion, and he's never wrestled a day in his life.
And I agree with what he's saying completely. However, we have spent far too much time on this podcast already acknowledging that none of this makes sense. None of this is anything but, hey, let's just fucking see what happens. So this is the ultimate extreme of, hey, let's just do this and see where it goes.
And they want the media coverage. They want
Yeah,
the possibility that somebody's like, I'll tune in on this because I want to see what the Pat McAfee guy is going to do. Like,
I know, but this just feels so WCW to me.
Oh yeah,
How much of WWE right now doesn't feel like WCW? A lot of what they're doing just feels like.
I mean, they have done. I'm not saying WWE hasn't done celebrity matches in the past, things like that, but it's like Floyd Mayweather against the Big Show, and who the fuck really cares about? I mean, so who cares about the Big Show? Big Show's obviously a big star and stuff like that, but he's a guy who was already at that sort of level of, okay, he's fighting a celebrity, and like, that makes sense because it's the Big Show, and the Big Show wins, loses, draws. It doesn't really matter, but he's just like
not
he's just
the
there.
Guy.
Yeah, he's not the guy. Whereas this guy has been the guy for was the guy for NXT for over a year, and so just putting him immediately, it's like it hasn't even been. Well, it's been about a month or so since he dropped that title, and now he's in the celebrity thing. It's not even been a calling off period or anything like that, or he's been in other feuds with other guys that could get the rub from fighting and maybe beating Adam Cole now that he's no longer attached to the title. He's just immediately going into this match with celebrity, which is built around the fact that Adam Cole is small and looks like it doesn't look like a wrestler at all.
That is true. It is pretty much built around the idea of, look at you, you little guy. Like, I'm gonna beat your ass.
No, yeah, it's great exposure for the champion. This punter. It's not even. I've had to say, like, not a real football player, but it's like he's the guy who's not actually involved in the more physical side of the football. He's just the guy that kicks the ball through the sticks. And essentially, he's going to overmatch, outpower, and outsize. I'll say it again: the greatest NXT champion of all time.
I agree with Callum. Adam Cole should run right through him, but they won't do that. Honestly, this is a match that only works if you play it in front of people, and I think if there were actual people, Pat McAfee wouldn't be getting this chance.
Well, I still think that a lot of these matches weren't planned to take over on this, to take place on this takeover. I still think that a few weeks back, even, maybe, how long ago was Great American Bash? That was the beginning of July, right?
Around July 4th week. It would be about the week surrounding July 4th.
I still think that before they had started doing the whole build for a Great American Bash, that the plan was Keith Lee wins the title from Adam Cole here. And the fact that they sped up that whole process means that they are, they're kind of like working with filling in some gaps and figuring out some other alternative options and stuff like that. So I don't think it's stuff like that again. I don't think that the Pat McAfee match was planned for this. And if it was, I don't think that it would have been Adam Cole that they would have put against him. I think that they might have had something like Pat McAfee against like Johnny Gargano or something like that. So, I mean, it could be great. I highly doubt it. It's interesting, that's for sure. And they could make this work in a way that I think it could be worthwhile. I'm at the very least intrigued. So I'm excited for the match. And there's a very good chance afterward I go, well, that was just awful. But I think I'll probably end up saying that I've seen worse. And Adam Cole's got to win. If he loses, come on.
Yeah, if Adam Cole loses, then I have lost all faith in NXT.
Yeah, Adam Cole needs to win. And just to the record, even though I've basically just spent my entire time about this match just shitting on it, I don't think the match will be bad. I think Adam Cole's good enough to carry this to at least a decent match. And but it's just the idea of and it's not going to kill NXT, or it's not going to really just hurt in any sort of way, but it just adds to this miasma of who cares. Like, oh, Adam Cole's fight, this long-reigning NXT champion is now fighting a celebrity, and he's going to have to fight him on pretty much an even ground. Okay, who cares? And then it's just like you just start to build this idea of once you start building that thing, we see it with the main roster in particular now. Once you build that trend of like, okay, this is happening. Okay, let's just go with it. Then it just loses all meaning, and every show, especially like some of the previous ones, it just becomes a show that you stick on because you feel like you're compelled to watch it. Well, no, you're not feel compelled to watch it. You feel obligated to watch it because you've been following it for so long, rather than, oh, I'm really interested about what they're actually going to do this week. And I just feel like that's a trend that NXT is going on, and this is an encapsulation of it.
I agree.
That brings us to our most likely main event. Kind of depends. Maybe they'll do the Pat McAfee thing in the main event. NXT Championship match. Keith Lee is defending against Karrion Kross. And I mentioned this earlier. Way, way, way too early to be having this match. Because at this point, you can't book either of them to win or to lose.
Yeah, it's absolutely. They shouldn't be doing this match as soon as they should do. They should have Keith Lee going for a few, I don't say like lesser talents, but there's more scope to build with the Karrion Kross character. I mean, part of me likes it because they're always so hesitant to push guys to the moon straight away. And they hold people back for years and years on end. And then when they eventually win the title, enough damage or harm has been done to their character that it doesn't feel as big as it could have been. But there is a case of like Keith Lee was at the start of the year probably the most over guy in NXT, and ideally probably should have won it sooner than he did end up winning it. But now he's won it, it feels like he's going to drop it immediately, which feels wrong in a way. But I know NXT, as we've spoken about in our other shows we talked about recently, NXT does tend to prioritize the heel with the long runs, and the babyface gets the short. Like, it's the big moment that they finally win the title, and then they drop it almost immediately afterwards. And it does feel like that's the pattern that's going to continue here. But yeah, I would say, at least on the positive side, this is probably the best built match on the show. I feel like they've done a really good job with the Karrion Kross presentation. He's looked strong throughout this. His entrance is great. Just the overall aura that he presents really stands him out from the crowd at the moment. I feel Keith Lee is the perfect guy for him to have this match. If it is the crowning moment for him to become NXT champion straight out the gate, Keith Lee is a powerhouse that he can throw around a little bit, because Keith Lee can take those kind of bumps and do that sort of athletic stuff. So it'll make Kross look great if he is crowned NXT champion here. And yeah, I think the stuff they're doing, even with the fireball spot, I know it's corny and hokey, but it's like, at least it looked okay and it's different. It was a different type of contract signing rather than just like him. It added a bit of emphasis to it. It added something which I didn't feel was too far away from me thinking, oh, this is fucking stupid. So I'm looking forward to this. This is probably the match I'm most looking forward to on the card. Ladder
match for me, but I am excited. I do think that this has a lot of potential. It's just, where do you go? If Kross loses, some of that mystique's gone. If Lee loses, well, shit, he couldn't even defend his title. And why did you have him give up the North American title if you're going to do that? It's kind of a lose-lose situation.
Well, then you get into the idea that WWE wants to hold another draft. Who's to say that Keith Lee isn't a major part of that draft? Who's to say Rhea Ripley isn't a major part of that draft?
That's true. I forgot about that. That's supposed to be coming.
It was supposed to be coming in August. Right now, it's iffy.
So, I mean, if they are really adamant about this Thunderdome thing being their saving grace and kind of making it seem like they're going back to normal in a lot of ways, where they're going to try to be like, see, we've got fans, like that kind of thing, maybe the plan is to do that in September. And maybe they do bring up Keith Lee, and maybe he is. I mean, this is going down a real crazy rabbit hole, but like, we're going to talk about this tomorrow when we talk about our SummerSlam predictions. I don't know where they're going with this whole Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt thing. They're almost seeming like they're going to do a double turn and Braun Strowman's going to be a heel and whatever. And if you want to have Braun Strowman be a heel and you want to have it matter, you have him retain the title, and then you need somebody to beat Braun Strowman. And Keith Lee, if you bring him up to the main roster and you have him potentially become the champion like that, that can offset losing the title to Karrion Kross. If you go from North American champion to double champion to one of your titles you relinquish, the other one you lose, but right away after that you go boost it up to the main roster and you're in the main event scene and potentially even win the championship. That could be a way around that. That's a lot of ifs, though. A lot of levels.
A lot of levels, and then I'm gonna hit you with something that I think is probably gonna drive Callum crazy, but then there's the idea that there's a takeover in October. Now, what the hell is stopping them from having Keith Lee, by the skin of his teeth, retain the belt here? And then in October, at NXT TakeOver Halloween Havoc, you do Karrion Kross and Keith Lee in some kind of ridiculous gothic cinematic match where then Karrion Kross wins the belt. And that's where I'm going. I think Lee retains here, and Karrion Kross gets it at the takeover in October in a cinematic match.
That would strike me as echoing very, very similar to the Ember Moon Shayna Baszler match from a while ago, where it was so obvious that Shayna Baszler was so much better as a character, and it was her time to win the title the first time they had that match takeover. But they kept the title when Ember Moon winning by the skin of her teeth because she just won the title. And so it would look bad on her if she lost it straight away, even though it was the right thing to do. Whereas I think in this situation, it is if you're very much intent on pushing Karrion Kross, the right move, even if it does suck for Keith Lee and his fans, is to have Karrion Kross win the title here. But they could, as Rob rightly says, they could do something where Keith Lee just about ekes it out with a roll up or something to that effect, and then they extend the feud out to the next takeover. I don't think that's the right way to do it, because it just, as Tony says, it removes some of Kross's mystique, and when he wins the title eventually, it feels like, okay, why didn't you just do this earlier? And like Kross doesn't feel as big of a deal as when he would have won it the first time round. And you have to think about, I was just saying, you have to think about what your future is with that side of thing. You can't just, even though we all love Keith Lee and he's a great wrestler and he's done great things to become NXT champion and he's rightfully at that level, you can't just hold sentiment in the face of like, okay, but we really see a lot in this guy going forward. You can't just let sentiment damage that perception of that guy.
Well, planning ahead is something that they would need to apply in all facets. You know, whenever I do any kind of fantasy booking, for instance, even though that has no repercussions whatsoever and it's not something that people follow up on and any of that kind of stuff, I always think to myself, who else is on the roster? Where else can you go? What do we do after this? That kind of a thing. If Keith Lee retains the title, there's no heel or babyface for that matter that's as threatening to him as Karrion Kross. So everything following this, it's going to feel a little bit like a breeze in comparison. If Karrion Kross wins, who does he start feuding with? Because you can't do like Kross against Damian Priest and make it seem like it's going to be that big of a deal. And you can't do Kross against a lot of other people and have it seem like a huge deal. You can bring Ciampa back and have him try to fight for the title and, you know, do that kind of a thing. But there's also the possibility that Ciampa, Dijakovic, all these other kind of people might be a part of Retribution. So we're in that kind of realm right now where we don't know what WWE's plans are, if they have any plans, and we don't know what their potential plans might be if they don't have any plans. It sounds like, you know, either they do it or they don't, like that kind of thing. But that's the truth of the matter is, there could be a plan right now that we're completely oblivious to that would seem completely illogical, yet in hindsight, it would make a hell of a lot of sense. Like the whole draft thing. They might have it in their mind that, for instance, Ciampa is not in Retribution, and that the whole setup is let's do Karrion Kross beats Keith Lee, and then that way we could have Ciampa fight Kross at War Games. Or we don't know if that October 4th thing is happening. We don't know about NXT UK TakeOver Dublin. We don't know if there's going to be something at War Games. We don't know if that's going to be around Survivor Series. There's a lot that is factored in here where I feel like by mid-October, we're going to have, and that's really jumping ahead, we got to go through all of the rest of August. We got to go through September, and then we'll get to this point. But I think we're going to look back on this, and we're going to go, okay, all right, either that's where you were going, or that's where you thought you were going, and it turned into a complete mess, and then that's why we're in the situation we're in now. Either we're like Ember Moon, Shayna Baszler territory, where they didn't want to have Ember Moon win that championship and ended up having her win it. They didn't want to have her lose it, ended up going to Shayna, and ultimately they were like, we probably should have just gone from Asuka to Shayna, that kind of thing. Or we're going to be in the Charlotte Flair, Rhea Ripley, Io Shirai territory of clearly you had different ideas, it all went to hell, and now you're trying to play catch up and fix it all. I don't know if I would feel confident thinking the future is safe with either of these guys as champion, despite the fact that I like both of them a whole lot. Like, there's a lot of problems that could happen with Kross as champion. Plus, you're taking that hit on Keith Lee. Keith Lee wins, you're taking a hit for Karrion Kross, and where do you go from there? They really should have planned this out, I think, ahead, unless we find out something in retrospect, to not do this match at this card. That, I think, would have potentially solved a lot of the issues. They could have gone away with Keith Lee against Adam Cole if they wouldn't have had the title match already. They could have had Keith Lee against Dominik Dijakovic. They could have had Keith Lee against Finn Balor. They could have gone in with a lot of different directions. And I just really, really hope, for the sake of both these guys and the future of the roster and the future of NXT, that they actually have a decent plan. And that it's not just big guy versus big guy. How about that? And then we'll figure it out afterward. Because anytime that they say, we'll figure it out, they don't. Then it's just plans change. You got to forgive us. Because if you don't forgive us, what are you going to do? Not watch? Like all the other people? Yeah.
I think we've more than covered enough how
confusing a lot of these things
how
are.
broken the NXT system is right now. But I'm going to stick with Keith Lee wins here. Kross gets it in October. And it won't matter in the end because Keith Lee is still a big babyface.
I'll echo that, but I'll add a twist to it. I don't know if Keith Lee wins, but I think that there's a slight more chance that he retains the title. And I'm thinking that one of the possible options might be Karrion Kross gets disqualified. Or it's like a double count out or something like that.
That's the worst thing you can do on a major event.
But look at WWE lately. They've been doing a lot of shit like that. For that matter, I'll skip ahead already for something we're going to talk about tomorrow night. Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton's not ending with either of them winning. That's Retribution.
Retribution, yeah.
So it's like they have had Asuka have a double count out with Nia Jax. Then they have Asuka lose a match because Bayley pretends to be a referee. And then they just go, I don't know. We'll figure it out on Raw. They love to do this shit recently where it's just like, let's spend weeks building something up so that we can go, it didn't happen. Whoa, you're going to have to check it out again. I firmly believe there's a solid chance they have Keith Lee versus Karrion Kross, and their game plan could be a non-finish, just for the sake of, you might want to tune in when they do it again.
The main event of the show is Adam Cole beating the crap out of Pat McAfee.
I think that that's one of the reasons why that might be on the card, too. There's a really good chance that they have the Keith Lee Karrion Kross match as the second to last match, and then it just becomes, well, you can't be too mad that that's not the main event, whatever, Callum, you think it's Kross? You think it's Lee? You think it's a non-finish?
I'm going straight forward. Kross wins, and fairly comfortably.
You've really bothered me with that whole non-finish idea. That's just awful.
It's on the table. Something to be worried about.
It's always on the table in WWE.
And you figure we are getting a guaranteed new champion with the North American title. Io Shirai is going to retain, unless something crazy happens with that. And, you know, then maybe they look at that as you're getting a title match. A new title, the title change, I mean. And you're getting a ladder match and all that. You can't be too mad about the Keith Lee thing or whatever, because wasn't the match great? Tune into the NXT and we'll see where this goes. Like, I think that there's a good chance for that. So my official prediction is no contest or DQ or some kind of bullshit like that. But if I have to go with a pick, it's like a 50.00001% that I'm going to go Keith Lee. I guess we'll figure it out. We got a couple days. Tomorrow night on NXT, we're going to see how they factor in all these different things with the ladder match, if they add any more matches to the card, if we get any kind of other further developments. Maybe they do something where they say, like, we've been enjoying screwing up people's eyeballs recently. Well, Keith Lee's, you know, his retina's detached from this whole burn, and he's got these cornea things and whatever. Maybe that they'll be their excuse for how he loses or something. Or maybe they act like he's perfectly fine, and who knows? I don't know. We'll address that on the hot tags, though. And when it comes to later on this week, when we actually have the pay-per-view, which is going to be on Saturday, we will do the live coverage on the website. I'll be having my stuff on the Wrestling News Bleacher Report. And then following that, we will do our Pay-Per-Viewpoint post-show, where we'll talk about what actually did happen, where we think that the future is going to go from this point going forward, all that other kind of stuff. So my plugs are all pretty much wrapped up, except for the thing that I'm going to get into afterward. But you guys have some things to toss out there, so go ahead. Who wants to go?
Callum, go ahead and toss it out there.
Okay, well, you can follow me on Twitter at Wikimeister14. You can check out all the great articles on smarkatmoment.com. The Power Rankings is my weekly contribution, but make sure you check out all the other articles there as well. And the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, which we take place every single Saturday here on the Smark at Moment channel, and all the other podcast feeds that you can listen to, where me and Rob go back to the year 2002 at the moment. And we go through all the episodes of SmackDown that Paul Heyman was the head writer for. And so the next one coming up, I believe, would be it's the episode on the 22nd, which I believe was the SummerSlam Go Home show.
Yes.
Yep, so you'll be hearing that one next. And also, if you are on the $10 tier of the Patreon, on the 25th, you'll be hearing the SummerSlam 2002 review that me and Rob
exactly
do
a week
as well.
from today.
Yep, so make sure if you are on the Patreon level, and if you aren't on there already, hopefully that gives you an incentive to get on the $10 tier, get that other podcast in your ears. And just as a tease for tomorrow's show, there will be another, I guess, fairly big announcement, depending on how much you followed Smoke Out Moment in the past before. But I won't spoil it here. You have to find out yourself by checking out the SummerSlam one. Just a little tease for you. But there is another big announcement coming.
That's exciting. As for me, you can check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dude Felice. Check out Fightful and WrestleZone throughout the chaotic weekend that wrestling will bring, with, you know, NXT and AEW and SummerSlam and the bevy of indie shows that have returned, like GCW and beyond. And yeah, keep checking out all the stuff I'm on. The Rest Friends podcast that I did recently, that's a blast. You can check that out anywhere you get your podcasts. I'm always on the WrestleZone Daily, Monday through Friday. You can check that out where you get your podcasts, and just keep supporting.
And of course, as I mentioned before, tomorrow we are doing our SummerSlam predictions. We got that big announcement going on. We got a whole extra card to break down, and then we're going to carry that on throughout the rest of the week. The hot tags will be where we address any changes, as well as the other things that are happening throughout the week, like the Sonya Deville situation or anything else, you know. I mean, hopefully there's not a whole lot of other things that happen
God
like
knows
that.
how much that'll change.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Really, the big hot tag of this week is we're gonna break down the Thunderdome.
We're
and I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, that's gonna be most likely the main topic. We will get our first taste of that on SmackDown before we do the hot tags, so we'll have a little bit of our first impressions and such. And the idea of following through with this pay-per-view point stuff is just going to continue as far as like until the eye can see, because not only do we have the Takeover 30 stuff on Saturday and the SummerSlam stuff on Sunday, but then we're going to roll right into the next week where we got Payback, and we know that that pay-per-view is happening on that Sunday. So of course we're going to follow the same trend. We're going to do our predictions, we're going to do the hot tags, we're going to do the Payback post show and all that stuff. And then after that, pretty much roll right along to All Out, because it's just never ending. So we'll talk about the AEW side of things. And
Tony, we've talked about this. This is good because it's slightly normal.
it's good, it's bad, there's positives and negatives. It gives us some easy topics to talk about as far as we know what we're getting into, but then it gives us the whole things where it's like we don't know what the hell they're doing and whatever. So eventually we're going to get back to the point where we can start doing more of like the blank weeks where we can fill it in with the special features and stuff. But at any point, if you are getting sick of the pay-per-view point talk and you want us to do some other things, and you really, really want us to do whatever it is, maybe another top rope list, maybe a fan ounce table, or any of the other kind of things that are on the gimmicks, then remember, there's that Pick Your Poison tier on Patreon. And that one donation on a Patreon is actually, if you think about it, a good step towards that whole WordPress type thing. I'm kind of thinking that it might be somewhere around like $2,000 to get this to kind of get up and running. So obviously $50 is not $2,000, but if you got to pay a web developer, and
in the eyes of you, the donator, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, if you got to pay a web developer to help you out in fixing a lot of problems, and you got to buy a custom theme, and you got to upgrade your hosting service, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and you got to buy plugins and all that, we're looking at several hundreds of dollars at the very least. But hey, maybe you're one of those people out there that you just hit the lottery and you're like, how do I waste this? And you go, you want to take advantage of that tier that says like the Hall of Fan, where you could just, I don't know, I don't even know what to do in response, but hey, that's amazing, and you should be a saint in the future, that kind of thing. Then go ahead and do that. So any Mother Teresa's that are out there, if you got the spear change, toss it our way. But we will appreciate any way that you help us out, whether that's just liking the video, subscribing, leaving a comment, watching it, telling your friends, sharing it around on Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. As long as you guys are following, it's something that's awesome. So thank you for listening to this edition. Thank you for everything else that you guys do, and we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.